I'm very happy that we have these three eminent personalities, and I would like to ask Jane to start. Have a nice half an hour.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vladi, for that introduction, and welcome everyone. And thank you, Roger and Franz, for joining me on this. I'm very excited to talk to both of you. Today, we're going to be talking about 2021 and beyond, an exploration of new spa and wellness strategies for today's health-focused consumer. And I can't think of two better people to be discussing this with. So welcome, Franz and Roger. And for those of you in the audience, just to say that we will hopefully have some time at the end to answer your questions. So if you have anything you'd like to ask the panel, just type it in the chat and I'll try and keep an eye on that as we're moving forward. So Roger and Franz, one of the things I wanted to talk to you both about today was the new consumer, or the way that the consumer has maybe been changed during this past year that we've all been through, and the sense in which there are so many people who have kind of come to wellness, found wellness, realized the importance of wellness in their own lives and especially in their own health. But often, I think, especially those consumers who are new to wellness have found it through technology in the past year, whether that's through an app or through an online fitness class. And I just wanted to kind of explore how you both think that might translate into the wellness sector as and when things get back to normal, and to kind of just get your thoughts about how society in general has been influenced by technology and what that means for our sector as we plan for things and adjust for things. And maybe I'll start with you, Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. Certainly technology is with us in a much more significant way than it was pre-COVID. I think technology filled the gap of guided well-being activities and then some in a significant way to show alternative ways of engaging with well-being, a more convenient way to some degree of engaging with well-being, and then providing information on an individual state of health, through the abundance of technological apps, health apps on the marketplace. And I think right now, wellness, well-being related businesses have now got to try to understand how they merge technological solutions that the consumer is now accustomed to with that of the bricks and mortar of the business proposition. Whether that be a hotel, a resort, or a standalone, well-being proposition. How do you merge those two together? And this is going to be the biggest challenge to many businesses who really now have to think much deeper about their well-being proposition, and whatever they have to offer right now, does it really stack up in what will be a much more competitive environment? And I think some of the key questions for business owners and stakeholders include, are they going to create their own digital guest health platforms? Or do they partner with existing third-party platforms? And if it's using third-party platforms, how do they retain, a unique guest experience that's identifiable with the destination? So I think there's some, key questions there. There are absolutely lots of solutions from a technological point of view. It's a question of which one, stakeholders will choose that will add value to their existing business proposition.
Right. And do you think there's opportunity for growth in things like in-room wellness then because of this, because people are so used to using technology?
Almost definitely. And I think it doesn't just, stop at in-room. I think you will see, in, I would say, guided wellness spaces, fitness facilities, outdoor recreation, and we saw that, pre-COVID, where, guests were engaging and exercising with using their phone or their iPad, engaging with their personal trainer back home. So that was already there pre-COVID. I think during COVID, we're going to see an explosion of that, an acceleration of that moving forward. And again, the biggest task for these businesses is how do they merge these digital platforms that the consumer is so accustomed to with a proposition that is, being offered in the bricks and mortar. That's a tough one.
Yeah, yeah. Franz, what do you have thoughts on this?
Well, I would like to jump on right away what Roger just said. I mean, there is no doubt that technology has experienced a big boost over the last year. I mean, worldwide. We see that in the way we communicate right now. So it's just, it has become a very common thing to do. Now, what we see from the markets is that there's been an incredible increase in the home wellness and home fitness industry. So people were just buying like sick, whatever they could get. Their bikes, their rowing machines, their yoga online sessions and all that stuff. So that means that there's a bigger affinity for people to experience wellness through a technological, or if you want, an online basis. Even in bigger cities, the in-person courses have disappeared, but online courses in yoga and in meditation, in breathing and all that have really come in a way that was unexpected a year ago. That's the one thing. So we could say that's a good development because people have more, a better or a more close relationship to that set of themes of wellness and health-related topics. On the other hand, in the post-COVID era that we are hopefully experiencing very soon, hotels and spas out there will have to convince people to leave their homes and say, why would you leave the home? What is it that we can offer that home courses cannot? Why would I drive for 6 hours for a 3-day yoga retreat if I can get it online? So it sounds ridiculous because we know there is a difference. We know there is this presence, there's the community feeling, there's this surroundings in nature, what have you. But basically, never ever before would a hotel service have to use marketing in order to convince people not to do what they normally did in a hotel back at home after a year of having get used to it. So that's kind of an interesting thing. If you allow me a second thought on this, technology, of course, helps a lot in these questions. However, from a bigger picture, let's say from a meta level, what is the wellness and the spa industry about? Is it really the industry that should be contributing to this tech revolution, or should we rather, as many people tell us in our work with hotels and groups and the concepts, be a place where we could probably reduce the usage of technology and mobile phones, and couldn't we rather be the ones in the hotels out there to say, well, that's the world you live in at home. Here, let's try and live without the device, maybe for a 3-day period, if not a week. And if you say, if normally an app, a sleeping app, for example, would tell me how many deep sleeping phases I had over the last night, when I fall asleep, how many seconds or minutes or hours. Now, normally, I'm still from a generation when I woke up in the morning, I knew I slept well. I didn't have to use a device to tell me. So wouldn't the industry be the one to say, let's develop that feeling self within myself more and say, don't you feel it? And use the apps rather for sleeping problems rather than everyday sleeping recordings, for example. So that's a very basic question about what the hotels and the wellness and spa industry is about in that context. And it'll be a difficult situation in which we find ourselves after COVID.
Yeah,
We'll
I
have
think
to find solutions for that.
On the one hand, this technology has meant a lot of people are more comfortable and more exposed to a lot of the things that we've been doing for a long time. They're more open to it. On another hand, I suppose then there's the opportunity to offer them things in real life, which of course is what everyone wants to get back to. One of the other things that I think is quite interesting that we were discussing is that the way in which the word health is kind of more friendly for our hospitality industry than it used to be. How we've grown into wellness, and now things with the word health in it are a bit more palatable to the consumer. I'm just wondering how each of you see concepts that bring in more traditional health programming or health treatments fitting into kind of a greater spa and wellness picture, and particularly looking at that in a post-COVID world.
Well, I mean, from the RA global perspective, it's an approach that we always believed in. Whether whatever kind of phrase we want to coin here, we coined the phrase, well-being hospitality, which we think is more applicable than ever before, which was really looking at how leisure, recreation, well-being, sport, fitness, healthcare actually influences performance of real estate, which is really at the core of any conceptual viable concept, and is something that we always insisted investors take a good hard look at before coming into the sector. And so that always looked at I would say a broader picture of activities. So how is that changing now that we're getting into, as we look towards post-COVID? From our company perspective, we have seen, many more projects with, I would say, more serious medical concepts that are integrated into the core programming. So, and this was, some years ago was unheard of. We still had a very, I would say, basic level of kind of wellness programming, spa programming. But giving you some examples here, I mean, one project, we're working on will have a world-class oncology unit. This is serious investments. These are serious concepts that will look at integrated programming. Another project where we, looking at senior living development with a much more thorough integrative wellness approach to complement the daily, nursing that is required to be administered to the guests of this development. So that's what we're seeing, come to light when you talk about programming. On one side, we've got a much broader array of activities that will need to be pulled in and considered as part of whether it's health, whether it's wellness. We look at well-being hospitality. And then, new programming is much more medical moving forward.
Really interesting.
Well, if I may just jump on that, Jane. What you just said, I can't agree more. I couldn't agree more. This is a much more serious topic now, and health as a word, within our industry, now has a much more positive connotation, if I may say so. In several ways. If we write emails to each other, at the end we would say, stay healthy. we wouldn't do that 2 years ago. It's so normal now. Health is omnipresent in our everyday conversation now. That by itself is very positive. But on another aspect, a positive usage of the word health is also that I find it much, much more in a context of preserving health, staying resilient, rather than repairing sicknesses. And that is really something that people that are in preventative medicine have been, telling and preaching for many, many years. Now it's basically there, So if you have an offering in a wellness or spa that is somehow bringing the word it's healthy, it's good for you in the manner of it's better than just pampering kind of idea, then it's much more positive now than it used to be maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Also, any aspect of health, I think, brings by itself a personal aspect to any program. Because if it's healthy, by nature, it has to be customized. It can't be healthy for 20,000 people at the same time. It can be healthy for you, but the same program wouldn't be healthy for maybe the second customer after that. So this aspect of it's healthy means it's individual, it's customized, and I think it also brings in aspects of a personal attitude to the people by saying we need to have some kind of a checkup. We need to have some kind of a pre-conversation. We somehow have to define the way for the next 3, 4, 7 days. We have to somehow define a goal in the sense of detoxing you, of weight management, or of improving your sleep, for example. So people are much more into result-driven offerings, which then, as we hear from some people in the marketing out there, lead to the readiness to spend more on that. So if you are good in the sense of you are healthy, it makes a change for myself, for my life. It's fine if it costs a bit more. I think that's a good development for the high-end, let's say, hospitality industry with wellness and spa, in which we work personally, all of us.
Yeah. Well, essentially, I love that you guys both agree on that, and I think there's so much opportunity, and there's so much growth, and so many new things that you can offer. And I think, Roger, one of the things I thought was really interesting that you mentioned was that the idea of senior living and how we rethink that. That's a whole other topic that we could spend an entire webinar on. So we won't do that today, but it is quite interesting.
Well, it becomes more relevant to us as we get older. So I think we're all starting to think about it more, and maybe in a more selfish way, don't you think, Franz?
I do. Sorry, I'm agreeing again.
Well, we all know that everybody's kind of waiting, hoping, praying that things will soon get back to normal now that we're kind of 1 year on to this kind of whole nightmare of a year. And there seems to be some kind of light at the end of the tunnel, whether it's a long tunnel or a short tunnel. But there's certain markets that some of us have been to or heard reports from where things are open and starting to get back to some kind of semblance of normal. But for those of us who are still, as I think most of us here are, in some kind of lockdown, maybe slowly coming out of it, as we are in the UK. But how much do you think will need to change or to be adapted, and in big ways or small ways? And what can we do to prepare? And then the other thing that I'm curious about is what you each think about whether will there be a split in customers between those that are just so ready for everything to get back to normal and there on day one and there at the opening, and those who are more cautious and kind of wanting to make sure that everything is safe. And does that mean that there's two maybe different markets or two opportunities to serve two different clientele? Roger.
I've been fortunate to still be traveling and visiting locations where many leisure and entertainment businesses are still open, which is kind of strange because when you return back to Europe, you kind of feel like you've visited another planet. It's quite bizarre. Anyway, what I start to see, or what I have seen, is really a kind of society split into 3 categories. I think on one side we've got COVID cautious, those that are really very conscientious of safety, of health. Then we have COVID confident, which with the vaccination program now kicking in, there's more and more becoming confident. But I also believe that there's a third growing category, and this category is growing by the day, and this is COVID carefree. society wants to get back to normal, and that includes, travel. And we saw, we've seen glimpses of that in so many, different data points. One that was interesting, I thought, which was from TUI. A few weeks ago, when the UK Prime Minister announced, the possibility of the easing of travel restrictions, and this, I think, it was 3 or 4 phases. Within minutes, TUI had 600% increase in bookings. So people just want to travel, and people, I think the markets will come back once we recognize that oncoming, that the light at the end of the tunnel is not an oncoming train. It actually is, post-COVID in the horizon. I think the market will come back in an abundance. So we see the view from, let's say, the consumer side, and then on the investor side, we also see confidence, particularly for leisure destinations. There's a lot of confidence there, particularly those leisure destinations that have shown, if they've got good accessibility, they have proven, a remarkable market, a resilience to, economic challenges brought about by COVID. So I think from both sides, the market will come back because society wants to get back to normal and will travel. That those limits will be, restraints will be created by government restrictions, but ultimately society wants to travel. And we know the leisure market will come back strong because we see investor confidence in those segments. Back to you, Jane.
Well, I will just, we're kind of running a little bit short on time, but I do want to give Franz a chance to answer that as well.
All right.
You remember the original question?
I do. And finally, I don't quite agree with Roger. I do agree in the aspect that people are crazy to go back to travel.
Time's up, Franz. We're out of time.
So I start again positive. I do agree that people are crazy to go back to travel. But I think this is true of the average traveler more than the wellness traveler. I do think that there will be also a long-term change in the way wellness travelers will go on travel. From the feedback that we get, it looks like there will be probably less short trips. There will be probably more well-planned trips, more trips where people really ask for results. And as I said, then cost factor is secondary. Probably also an increase in long stays. We hear from bigger groups also in Asia and so forth that 3 weeks now are really booked a lot, which has not been the case since maybe 30 years ago when the cure tradition was still up there here in Central Europe. 3 weeks was normal then. And also I think that lifestyle related trips, if I may call that like this, will also increase after COVID. That means really result-driven trips rather than just a wellness weekend for pampering purposes. So yes, finally, I do agree there will be a split in these markets. There will be a strong a market, as Roger just described, that just want to go back to normal and do whatever they did for the last years. But there will be another one. And the question, as you put it, Jane, is there a need for the industry to adapt? I would rather say, let's put the question, can we see or do we see the opportunities when or if we adapt? Because there are opportunities for change, for people, many people out there that want to go on wellness vacation, but have a slightly different mindset after COVID as they had before. So there's an opportunity of a segment to be developed after COVID, which I'm quite convinced of.
Good. Well, thank you. And I think, gosh, there's so much more to talk about. And I would love to hear you talk more about that. And I wanted to talk to you guys about innovation and technology and touchless treatments and things. But I think we are just about out of time.
Yes.
So hopefully, I suppose we'll have to save all that conversation for when we can all be together again in person. And let me pass it back to Vladi to wrap up. Thank you both.
Thank you very much. I think it is absolutely interesting to see your view on our health and beauty, on our industry. Thank you very much for all coming to this webinar, and I hope to see you very soon in Paris or for the 14th event. And I hope that the situation in all over the world will be coming back, and that we can have a nice time all together. I would like also to thank all the spectators, all the visitors, and for all of you, have a nice day, and thank you very much.